Hi, I'm Richard McKenzie, co-author of Microeconomics for MBAs. This video module is going to be about twisting workers' pay over the course of their career. That is, underpaying them early on in their career and then overpaying them later. The first question we've got to ask is, can you expect workers to want to be underpaid? Now, they're not likely to want to be underpaid over the course of their career, but might they not want to be underpaid at least initially? One explanation for workers' desire for underpayment is that if in fact a worker receives less in compensation than he or she could justifiably earn in the marketplace, there may be advantages given to that worker, such as flexible scheduling or fringe benefits of one kind or another, especially on-the-job training. But what I'm talking about here is true underpayment. That is, a worker receiving less than that worker could receive elsewhere in the market. Now, we can analyze this question with reference to a graph that comes out of the textbook. Here we have a graph where we have years of service on the horizontal axis and we have income on the vertical axis. This dark red line represents the income that a worker can expect over the course of his or her career. There is some presumption that this income will reflect the true productivity of the worker, and as the worker gets more and more years of experience with years of service, the worker's productivity will rise and so will his income. Suppose this would be the path that the worker would be expected to follow if indeed he started at an income, or she started at an income of I1, that is his or her market wage. Would that worker accept an income level, say I2, to start with? Well, that may in fact be attractive to employees, but only if the underpayment, which is the difference between the red and the darker blue line, this underpayment through year Y1 is more than compensated by an overpayment later on. And of course, the present discounted value of this overpayment must exceed the underpayment from the start of his or her career to year Y1. Well, there may be some gains here, but there may be more gains than might be expected. If in fact the worker goes from year 0 to year 1, that worker, if in fact he or she were to receive exactly equal to the income, would experience an income level after year 1 of Y2. If that worker goes to year 2, that worker will experience a slightly greater increase in income. And of course that means that the incentive that the worker has to gain experience and greater productivity is indicated by this little distance between I2 and I3. Notice that if the worker were on this lower income path that is started at I2 and had income increases indicated by the points on this blue thin line, then when moving from year 1 to year 2, the worker's increase in income is going to be greater. Therefore, the worker has a greater incentive to gain the experience and the greater productivity. The worker might want himself or herself to be underpaid initially because of the incentive to work harder and smarter as the years go by. That worker may also reason that if other workers are similarly underpaid to start off with, but yet receive higher wages for increases in productivity, then all workers can be better off, because all workers have an incentive to work smarter and maybe even longer for the company. Now, the workers, however, have a problem. They've got to realize that if they work up to year Y1, that is, they are underpaid, they've got to have some sort of guarantee that the employer will continue to follow with what would be an implicit agreement for them to be overpaid. Hence, you might find it very difficult for small companies to underpay workers. Why? Because small companies are usually new companies and they don't have a reputation for holding to their agreement, and they may very well be unable or unwilling to overpay workers later in life. It may also be that workers might not be willing to accept underpayment here because the established firms don't have credibility. That is, they don't have a history of actually fulfilling their agreement. And with the potential for corporate buyouts, you can imagine that workers would be somewhat reluctant to take underpayment. Why? Because if in fact you have a company that is overpaying a lot of its workers late in their careers, that company is ripe for takeover. Why? Because its profits can be suppressed by the overpayments at this point in time. And as a consequence, somebody could buy the company out, lower the wages to, say, the red line or hire new workers, and improve the profitability of the company. The stock price can go up and so forth. So a company has to be able to maintain a great deal of credibility if in fact it is going to underpay the workers and then later overpay the workers. One way the company is able to establish some credibility that it's going to follow suit with overpayments is that the companies may agree that if workers take suppressed wages initially, say I-2, then they can be given stock options or shares of stock. And as the company progresses through time, these shares can become much more profitable. Now, if a company is able to pull off the thin blue line pay system, you can imagine that such companies would want mandatory retirement because otherwise the workers may continue on well past their viable working ages. And as a consequence, the company, in order to justify engaging this, has to have some sort of cutoff point, say at age 65. Well, let's suppose Congress comes in and says that mandatory retirement is inappropriate. What can that do? Well, it means that workers can continue to be overpaid. It also means that employers would be less inclined to provide this kind of twisted pay scale. That is, they would be less inclined to underpay workers and overpay them later. It means that incentives can be disrupted as the wage comes closer to the going market wage. The lesson of this analysis is extraordinarily simple, and that is that there are good reasons for companies to have mandatory retirement policies. Why? Because it allows them the right, the privilege, the opportunity to overpay workers, at least for a short period of time. That means that companies can have an opportunity to underpay their workers early on in their career and boost incentives of all workers to work for the interests of the company. Thank you very much for listening to me.